Today we're having a look at a not so new Peugeot, because this is more a facelift than a brand new car. My name is Peter from Autogood Fuel, and today we're having a look at the new 308 and the 308 station wagon. And in this video I'm going to take you around the car to show you what exactly is new. And Peugeot has been so kind to put it in this nice scenic setting, so I thought I would film it here, especially because most of the news is here at the front. For the people that liked the traditional Peugeot design with the claw marks on the side, I have to disappoint you. Those are going to be gone with the new 308. Instead, we still get the stripes, but now they are here in the daytime running setting that it has a different spot on the car. Peugeot is really talking about the face of the car and the gaze of the car. And with that, they want to make a more clean look on the front, especially because the headlights are now down here. So they're separate units, separated by a piece of bumper. And that's actually quite nice because the LED lights are so good these days. You can mount them much lower in the car. You don't need that height anymore for good projection. And it cleans it up quite nicely because when the lights are off, it's just a plain black panel, or it looks like it at least. So that's quite nice. I'll put some B-roll in it so you can actually see how it looks like at night. The other big news here on the front is, yes, the illuminated logo. It's very exciting, of course, but that is also part of the new face of this 308. And they're actually quite happy with that because they mention it in the press material quite a few times. And there's now some LEDs here along the entire width of the front as well. So that's the news in the front, mostly light-wise. So here in the back, it's a similar story. It's mostly about the lights. We now have these 3 slashes here that of course have to correspond with the lights in the front. I think it looks quite nice and stylish and gives the car, again, a good stance on the road. The other thing that they've done is they've taken off all the chrome and now have glossy black panels up here and down here in the bumper. And that's really all the changes there are, both for this hatchback version and for the station wagon variety. A quick look through the cockpit. Nothing has really changed in here, so we still have the Peugeot iCockpit setup with the too small steering wheel. For my liking, but some people are really into this, and then you have to look over the steering wheel to your driver's display. So that's all good. But for me, it is either I get stuck with my knees under the steering wheel, or I have to sit too high that my head gets stuck against the roof. So I'm not the biggest fan of this setup because it requires me to make too many compromises in the way I want to sit in the car. It is a nice idea though. I quite like that you have the display up higher, so you don't need a head-up display and you still have all your information available. So that's okay. And as far as that goes, the display is quite nice, clear to read also at night, so that's good. It's mostly buttons in here, so I got real buttons on the steering wheel, I got buttons down here, I got buttons in terms of shortcuts on the center console, I got real buttons for the windows and mirrors. All that is excellent, but it's not all buttons. They also have something they call the iToggle. That is a programmable row of tiles up here that are your shortcuts for the main screen. So you can set this up any way you want. So that's quite nice. Personally, I don't think it really adds anything because there's a row of shortcuts underneath here already that are exactly, shortcuts. So there's no toggle here to make the temperature go up and down. There's a button here that makes me go to the Klima menu. So I'm not really sure why I then need a row of programmable tiles to sort of do the same thing as these things can do. Why not just have an additional row of buttons, or give me some toggles so that I don't have to be in the screen. It's a bit of a mixed bag there. There's a little bit of piano black here around the screens and a little bit here on the steering wheel, which is a mistake. But for the rest of the car, it is actually quite nice. So there's plenty of other cars in Stellantis, like Alfa or Opel, that have way too much piano black here in the center console or here on the door. Not the case here. I'm very much okay with the setup here, that it's only a little bit over there. But the fact that especially the middle console is free from piano black and also here on the door is excellent. All around though, it's very Peugeot. If you're familiar with Peugeot products, then this is very familiar. It's quite nice, especially in this GT model. The quality of the materials. It's a little hard every once in a while. Gets a little scratchy here and there, but you can't fold it too much. And especially here with this GT model, you have some nice touches like the seats and the stitching and a bit of Alcantara. So all around, it's pretty nice. So obviously a little bit of driving as well in this new quote-unquote Peugeot. Obviously Peugeot has provided us with some nice roads here in Portugal for a little bit of trial and error, hopefully not too much error, but to see what this car can really do. Out of the three available powertrains, we've picked the plug-in hybrid here, which is coincidentally the most powerful version. And obviously the plug-in hybrid is supposed to offer the best of both worlds in terms of electric range, 85 kilometers according to Peugeot and the WLTP cycle. And when you run out of kilometers, you can still just get gas and drive normally. So that's a nice combination, but I have to say these days the normal hybrids are getting so good, and especially in the Netherlands where I live, the charging infrastructure is so good that if you drive a full electric car, that's not really an issue anymore either. But nevertheless, it's nice to try this car out here on these twisty roads. And obviously that trying out is always a bit of a thing because, you know, in real life, you're not driving these roads to work every day, at least not in the Netherlands where I live. But it is nice to provoke the car a little bit and to see what's what. So when we enter a little town like this, it is nice in this plug-in hybrid to be able to shift back to the fully electric mode and just relax, which I think is nice. I think that's one of the qualities of this powertrain, that you have the flexibility to make those adjustments. In reality though, I don't think you'll do that very much. I think you'll leave it in a normal hybrid mode for most of the time, where the car figures it out for you and you have a complete carefree driving experience that way. I don't really feel that a lot of people sort of sit around and play with the powertrain a lot in order to get the best out of the performance and electric and efficiency scenarios. I think in the end, we're fundamentally lazy enough to just let the car do it for us. And especially if the car does it well, why would you do otherwise? Now, this is by no means any kind of fast race sport vehicle or anything, but it is fast enough to enjoy yourself. If you do a little bit of curvy turns like we did earlier, I think it's quite nice. You get a good steering feel, you get a good communication from the car on what's happening in the front especially, without at any point in time it becoming some kind of rocket ship due to the excess amount of power or anything. That's not the case at all. I also don't think that that's the car for this, because you're going to have your family in the back and your wife will be complaining about it. But it's still fun enough to have a good time while driving. And I think that's key. Because of course, if you throw more power at a car, you need bigger brakes, bigger wheels, bigger everything. And then the car just gets too complicated and too expensive. And that's not what you want from this kind of a vehicle. But I do think Peugeot has found a nice balance in terms of power and performance in all the powertrains actually, but still have fun in driving and also have an accessibility level of that power where you can actually utilize it without going 3 million miles an hour right away, like you have in some high performance electric cars, for example. So here in the back of the 308, it is okay-ish for me to sit with my 1.83 meters and 90 kilos, but nothing more than that. The seats are actually quite far forward already at the moment, and I'm almost touching them, which is not too much of an issue because they're soft in the back. But if you put this in my driving position, for example, it does get a bit tight in here. So mostly aimed at children and shorter individuals. All basics are covered with some electric windows, some USBs for charging and some airflow management, but nothing more than that. So the Peugeot 308 comes in several powertrain varieties. I got them right here. We start with the regular hybrid, 145 horsepower, 0 to 100 in 9 seconds, 210 kilometers an hour top speed. So that is the sort of lowest power of the range, but it's actually faster than the full EV. Then we have the plug-in hybrid, that is the most powerful one, 195 horsepower, 14.6 kilowatt hour battery, good for 85 kilometers of electric range. 0 to 100 in 7.5 seconds and a top speed of 225, so it's the fastest of the range as well. Then the fully electric one, the BEV, 156 horsepower, 55 kilowatt hour battery pack, good for 450-ish, 40-ish kilometers of range. 0 to 100 in almost 10 seconds and 170 kilometers an hour top speed. That range, by the way, I have some doubts about, because I always calculate with about 20-ish kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and that is going to add up to 300 kilometers of range, give or take, let's say. So to go to 444 WLTP from there is quite the stretch, I think, because then means you have to go well under 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So I don't think that's a realistic figure, but okay, it's there. Last but not least, there will be a diesel version next year as well with 130 horsepower, and that will get you from 0 to 100 in 11 seconds. So that's for the countries where diesel is still relevant, certainly not in the Netherlands. So after that plug-in hybrid, we just switched to this full EV variety, and that is a whole different story. We have 156 horsepower under my right foot. We have a little over 50 kilowatt hours in usable battery capacity. And of course, this car is quite a lot heavier than the plug-in. And you can feel it right away. So first of all, the way this car now drives is different. There's a significant different feel coming back through the steering wheel, which is fine because it's an EV. So, you know, you take that for granted in some ways. But the big one is the power. So 156 horsepower is familiar from this Stellantis drivetrain. In itself, you could always argue that it's more than you need because you can get up to speed reasonably well, under 10 seconds to 100. But I would also argue that it is certainly nothing special in any way, shape or form. There's just not enough power to do any kind of overtaking or merging or any kind of situation management apart from the bare standards. Now, is that bad? On the one hand, no, because most of the time you'll sit in traffic, trundling along, driving your kids to swim class. On the other hand, it gets to the point as well, also in 2025, that these kind of numbers are not up to par anymore. And that's especially the case when you start looking at the bigger picture of this EV. So 53 kilowatt hour battery capacity usable. Charging though is only at 100 kilowatts. And it's just, those numbers are just not enough anymore these days, I think. Because obviously if you start looking at more expensive cars from China, for example, they can charge at 300, 400, 500 crazy speeds. That's not necessary maybe, but 100 is just too slow. And of course, I also accept that most of the time you should be charging at home at 11 kilowatts and all is well. And that's, you know, you're driving in and around your house most of the time. I accept, but pushing the boundaries a little bit as far as charging and range and those things go, and especially the power as well, I think becomes a bit of a sort of gaping hole in the whole proposition of this Peugeot. And that goes for more Stellantis products, obviously, that use this same powertrain. Now, the claimed range is 440 kilometers, WLTP. But if you look at the battery capacity, I reckon that's closer to 300. I usually calculate with about 20 kilowatt hours per 100 on average. And of course, you can go a bit lower if you're a bit more careful with your right foot, fine. But 440 kilometers of range out of this battery capacity seems borderline impossible to me. So I think this becomes a bit of a problematic proposition, especially compared to the hybrid and the plug-in hybrid, that both have more power, more torque, more range, more everything. So as a pure EV, I don't know. This car must have like looks that fully convince you if you want to be able to live with those kind of numbers. Now, after driving around with this car for a little bit here in Portugal, I think it is a nice refresh of the 308. It's nothing world shocking and it's not an entirely new car by any means, of course, but I think it looks nice and fresh again with these new updates, and it's a nice refresh for the car. And I think it also looks very different enough that you can really see that it is the new one. So that's good, and I think Peugeot has done a good job there. I think it's also still nice that you have a lot to choose within the model, both in terms of trim, but also in terms of powertrain. Albeit, I think they're getting to the point now where especially the EV is starting to lack a little bit. 100 kilowatt charging, the limited power, I feel that that really have to take a step in the next generation to bring that up to standard again, because it's now starting to lag behind a little bit compared to the competition. I still think this is a good looking car though, especially after the refresh. I think it's a nice looking car that you can be quite happy with if it stands on your driveway. And it's nice that there's so much to choose in the model itself. That's all I got for you in this video. Thanks for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about this refresh and if you think this is a car worth considering in this segment. Sub to the channel is always appreciated as well, of course, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers!